So having looked at Porter's low-cost provider strategy, let's now look at the second of the 5 business level strategy he proposed, which is the differentiation strategy. And as we can see here, it is an integrated set of actions taken to produce goods or service at an acceptable price that customers perceive as being different in important ways. Again, like as was with the case with low-cost providers, where it was all well and good to lower your cost, but you still had to offer some form of acceptable features. Again, here we see this at an acceptable cost being an important concept, and a good demonstration of this are the comparison, or is the comparison rather, of the two firms Mercedes versus Maybach. Now, Maybach is actually a subsidiary of Mercedes. Mercedes own Maybach. And they took it over, I think it was late 90s or early 2000s. They took over Maybach and decided that they were going to basically position this brand, they were going to relaunch the brand and position it as an upmarket alternative to their own cars that would basically compete against things like Bentleys and Rolls Royces, because Mercedes are expensive, but they're not super expensive, if you can say that. The Maybach was, that was the whole point of it. So what they did is they took their S-Class model, which is the model that you can see in the top picture here, and they created basically a stretched limo version of it, which was super expensive. I think it was in the millions of dollars, whereas that equivalent Mercedes is a couple of $100,000. Now I say only a couple of $100,000. That is still very, very expensive, but compared to say $1 million, it's not so bad. What they found was that no one, and I mean absolutely no one, apart from a few rappers pretty much, bought the Maybach, because they looked at it and said, why would I spend about $1 million on a Maybach when I could spend $200,000 to $300,000 and get almost exactly the same car in the Mercedes? And as I say, you look at them and they are very, very similar in their appearance, especially if you buy it in black and get those same very similar looking wheels. So it's one thing to say that we are unique and different and better, but it still needs to be at an acceptable cost in some way. Effective differentiation approaches. Number one, they carefully study buyer behavior and needs, values, and willingness to pay for a unique product or service. So you need to understand the target market that you're pitching this product to. It's no use selling something and saying, oh, look, we're better and we're unique and we're different, if you don't think that the customers are going to accept that. You also need to incorporate features that appeal both to buyers and also create a sustainably distinctive product offering. It also should often use higher prices, or can at least use higher prices, to recoup those differentiation costs. So what often happens is these products and firms that use a differentiation strategy, to make their product more different or unique, it often costs more to do that, even if it only means something like spending more money on marketing, which is what companies like Apple have been able to do, that and make your products be perceived as unique or better or different in that way. It generally costs more to make your product stand out from the crowd as being better or different. So in order to still make a profit, that is why we often see differentiated firms, or those firms that are pursuing a differentiation strategy, using high or offering higher prices for their product. There are obviously some advantages that come with this strategy, therefore. First of all, you can offer higher prices for your firm's products. Obviously, if you're pursuing a low-cost strategy, it's going to be difficult to convince buyers to purchase your product if yours is very basic because it's been produced at a low cost. If you then offer it and try and charge a high price, that is only really doable if you are pursuing a differentiation strategy. There are increased unit sales due to attractive differentiation. Often it's easier to sell something if it's perceived as being better or unique, as well as the brand loyalty that does tend to come with differentiation. It's very rare to find people being loyal to a brand only because it is cheap. People tend to like to be associated with a brand or continually purchase that brand if they think that they are being perceived as being better or unique or different through association with that company. So if you do want to pursue a differentiation strategy, how can you go about achieving that? First of all, things like striving to create superior product features, design, and performance is obviously the first thing you need to look at, because they are often the things, those particular product features, the design of the product, as well as how it performs, that will set your product or offering out from its competitors. Improving customer service or adding additional services. So people often forget about that and firms often neglect that, but often we can find that firms are able to achieve differentiation and potentially a sustainable competitive advantage by offering high levels of customer service. Certainly Ford at the moment, if you see any ads on television these days, Ford, the car manufacturer, trying to position themselves as being better from their rivals because they are claiming that they have higher levels of service, especially after sales service, when you come to, for example, get your car serviced. Pursuing production R&D activities, striving for innovation, that's a crucial part. We tend to see high levels of innovation being associated with firms that are pursuing a differentiation strategy. Obviously, if you're trying to come up with the newest and latest and greatest thing and features in products, that usually requires some form of innovation. Pursuing continuous quality improvement, emphasizing marketing and brand building activities to try and develop that loyalty. Seeking out high quality inputs. It's as I said before and touched on before, it's difficult for you to try and command a higher price and be perceived as better if you're including poor quality inputs in your product. And emphasizing human resource management activities that improve the skills, expertise, and knowledge of the people that you have working in your company. It'll be much easier to manufacture or produce a better product if you have more highly skilled people working for you. All right, so more specifically, what are the 4 ways that we can deliver superior value to our customers that our rivals cannot? What are some of the things that we can do that hopefully our rivals won't be able to do that will attract people to the brand? The first that we have here is to incorporate product attributes and user features that lower the buyer's overall costs of using that product. A good example that I've included here is seen in the top center of your screen. That, for those who don't know, is a Toyota Prius. It is a hybrid vehicle, and we're going to use it throughout in many examples throughout the next few weeks as we go through a variety of different strategy options. But what a very common thing, a common reason why people purchase that car is because it has very low running costs. Number one, Toyota are renowned for being reliable, low cost cars to own, so that's the good starting point. And then because it is a hybrid, it uses very little fuel, a small fraction of what many popular cars use these days. And so people often buy that, not just because it's seen as helping the environment, but because it is actually quite cheap to run, certainly in terms of the amount of petrol you have to use. It doesn't cost you much, and so that is being perceived obviously superior to a car which uses a lot of petrol and therefore costs more to own. The second way we have here is to incorporate tangible features, most commonly through things like the styling of the product, that increase customer satisfaction with that product. Again, if we look to the right of your screen now, that car there is a good example of having the styling or tangible features that people can actually see and touch and hear that sets them apart from the crowd. That is the BMW i8. It is a super expensive, super high category vehicle, and that thing below it is actually the key fob. That is what you use to open the doors, which are quite fancy, as you can see there. They swing open in a gull wing fashion, as it's known, and that is how you start your car and do a variety of different functions. It looks pretty much like a mobile phone. So people look at that and they say, wow, that looks super advanced, very high tech. I want that car. It looks great. It's got all these tangible features that I can see and that I can put in my hand and make myself feel better about buying that car. The third option is to incorporate intangible features, i.e. buyer image, that enhance buyer satisfaction in non-economic ways. A good example is shown in the top right corner of your screens here, and everybody will be able to instantly recognize that product as a Mac, as an Apple MacBook. The fact that most of you can instantly look at that and straight away recognize that as an Apple product means that it already has that buyer image and reputation associated with it. And certainly anybody who's bought a MacBook or compared it to its rivals and competitors will know that it is outrageously expensive for what you get. In terms of the actual product itself, you can buy a laptop that will do almost exactly the same thing for a very small fraction of the price. But people continually buy their MacBooks over the rivals because it is an Apple and people like to be seen with it. It looks cool, it feels nice to touch, and people just like the image that comes with owning an Apple. And so that's a good example of how they've been able to incorporate these intangible features as much as anything, just that buyer reputation and image, to come with the product to offer a source of differentiation. Finally, you can signal the value of the firm's product, often, for example, through price, packaging, placement, or advertising, to the buyers. So we've talked, Apple are probably a good example again here of a company that's been able to use advertising and marketing as much as anything else to create that brand image and to create a signal the value of the firm. Whether that actually is being delivered through on or not is another thing. Certainly there are plenty of people who refuse to buy Apples for a variety of reasons, their products. But their marketing certainly does a great job of portraying it in a very fashionable and a high sense. Alright, so we've looked in the previous video those conditions in which a low-cost provider strategy worked best. Let's look now at those conditions in which a differentiation strategy will be most appropriate. First of all, when the diversity of buyer needs and uses for the product is high, when we want a variety of different buyers, it makes it easier for us to pitch something as being different, unique, or better. When there are many ways that differentiation can have value to buyers, when few rival firms follow a similar differentiation approach, or even better, if they are unable to follow a similar differentiation approach, and also, especially perhaps, when there is rapid change in technology and product features, that when there is a high focus on new and the latest and greatest technology and product features, that is when it is easiest for us to try and position something as being unique and different if we can achieve and develop those new technology and product features through our innovation. Alright, to finish on for our differentiation strategy, what are some of the dangers that come with this particular business level strategy? First of all, many firms do end up relying on product features that can be easily copied by rivals. So you need to think back, remember when we looked in week, I think it was week 4 in terms of the internal environment, that VRIN framework. It needs to be valuable, rare, inimitable rather, and non-substitutable if it is something that is to achieve sustainable competitive advantage. So you don't want a product feature that can be easily copied, obviously, because that means that it might offer you a competitive advantage today. But if it's easily copied, then your competitors might be able to offer pretty much the same thing tomorrow. Introducing product attributes that do not evoke an enthusiastic buyer response. A very common problem we find is that companies think that they have created the latest and greatest product, but then they release it and find that nobody actually wanted that. And we'll use some examples throughout the rest of the semester to illustrate that. Eroding profitability by overspending on efforts to differentiate the firm's product offering. A common problem, again, is that firms can get so caught up in offering the latest features or trying to position their products as being better or more unique than others, that they end up eroding their profit margins. It costs so much through the R&D processes, through the innovation and so on, and the marketing to actually try and make your product look better than something else, that even if you are successful in doing that, you're not going to be able to make enough money because of the costs that you've incurred in doing that. A good example here that I can give you, a quick example, the Volkswagen company, the car manufacturer, they own their subsidiary Bugatti. Bugatti set out to create the world's fastest car of all time. And eventually they were able to achieve that. It's a very famous car. But they lost money on every single Bugatti Veyron that they made because it cost so much for them to develop that product so that it was the fastest car of all time. So you need to make sure you're not overspending on trying to make your product differentiated. Only offering trivial improvements in quality, service, or product performance features vis-a-vis the products of rivals. So you need to make sure it is substantially different, noticeably different, or more unique. Adding frills and features such that the product exceeds the needs and use patterns of most buyers, again coming back to offering something that your buyers actually want or need, or charging too high a price premium, as was the case with Mercedes and their Maybach subsidiary that I talked about in the beginning. Alright, in the next video, let's move on now to the focus strategies.